So why are all of these thematic messages important? Why is the undercurrent important? Why is the overall message or the tone or what the TV show is trying to say? Why does it matter at all what these messages are coming from movies or TV shows? After all, they're just movies and TV shows, right? It's because everything in the world of art that is compelling, that is interesting, that's entertaining, is saying something of importance, even if the audience cannot articulate what that something is on the conscious level. It is these unconscious messages which influence and reinforce your belief systems upon the unsuspecting audience. You are being consciously programmed, and those beliefs are being reinforced by what you take into your mind. Okay? Every moment, whether you're asleep or whether you're awake, there's an unconscious processing happening, an unconscious processing of your environment. So knowing what your values are, what is important to you, and the values which are being transmitted to you in various forms of entertainment, including the people around you, right? The people you surround yourself with, and elsewhere, where you work, the places you go, right? These are all very critical if you wish to overwrite unconscious negative programming and change your life for the better. Else you risk quite easily sliding back into familiar unconscious patterns. Let's say, for example, you change a habit and you are believing something more and more that's benefiting you, and then you go back and you watch a show and you binge watch a show, but this binge watching of the show just happens to have an unconscious message that contradicts this new belief you're trying to acquire, this new belief you're trying to make part of who you are, right? You could unknowingly, unwittingly be reversing or unwinding what you're trying to change in your life. And it brings you back to the dark side, right? So it should be no secret that the agendas of the sorcerer and the magi alike are injected into the art of film and television. There's plenty of films that have a very dark message and very negative unconscious messages. But then there's plenty of films and some TV shows that I'm aware of that have a very positive message, or at least have, and maybe not so much positive as they at least have a message that is intent on you finding your own voice or trying to wake you up, trying to wake the audience up, right? It's so critical to discern which is which, right? That's why understanding symbolism, understanding themes in the art that's in front of you, whether it's a painting or a movie, a TV show, a video game, whatever it is, it's so important, because if you're not aware of those messages, you're being unconsciously programmed, right? And that programming may not be something you agree with or that you want to be programmed with, but it's happening to you if you're not even aware, if you're not aware of it, right? This is a quote from Thomas Merton, and he once said that art enables us to find ourselves and lose ourselves at the same time, right? And this is the message of, these are the themes that could be aligned with the sorcerer or the magi, right? You can find yourself in good art. Good art could have a message for you that is a positive, unconscious programming, a positive message for you, right? But art just as easily could be something that you lose yourself in. It could be something that gives you a message that's really not benefiting you, and if you were awoken to this message, you would reject it But if you are not mindful of the message, if you're not understanding this dynamic that's happening to you, this unconscious programming, you're taking it within you unconsciously without even realizing it, and you are acting accordingly. Your belief system is in accordance with this unconscious programming. So it's a very, very, very powerful mechanism. And people know this, right? The government know that these TV shows, this digital media, movies, etc., video games, are very powerful tools in which to propagate a message, in which to transmit and imprint a message unconsciously, right? They know about this. So powerful unconscious messages are delivered through the channel of the theta wave brain state, right? And they're reinforced by the second mode or method. The second mode is the repetition of the same unconscious message being reiterated over and over, episode after episode, season after season, show after show, year after year, and decade after decade. You can have the exact same messages in many different shows. That same message can appear over and over again in totally different shows from different directors, right? A steady stream of entertainment is reinforcing unconscious programming for millions of people nearly every evening. Now, is this unconscious programming, is this something that's benefiting you, or is it setting you back? Is it harming you, right? That's the question you have to answer for yourself. Awareness of the quality of your attention is absolutely critical if you wish to deepen your understanding of yourself, your understanding of the world, and to find your own voice, and also just improve your life. Improve your life and improve the lives of others around you, right? It's so critical to pay attention to the quality of your attention. And part of that quality of your attention is what messages are being beamed at you, right? Now, I'm using this very same technique of repetition myself throughout this video series, in fact, right? Now, why would I be doing this? Because it's effective. And I must emphasize that my goal is to help you break these patterns and overwrite your unconscious programming for yourself. And also my goal is to break the patterns and overwrite unconscious programming for myself, right? The difference, of course, is that when you choose to overwrite your old programming with whatever you want, it's entirely up to you. That's the choice. I'm not trying to put a message that is, I mean, my message is generally positive anyway, right? Because that's my belief. My belief is that people are essentially good. There are sorcerers out there, for sure. But I think that most people benefit from goodness, not from, they benefit from acting, believing in the spirit of the Magi instead of the sorcerer. But this really is ultimately up to you at the end of the day. Of course, I would rather that you use this information in the spirit of the Magi instead of as a sorcerer or even as a normal, right? By the way, if you're a normal, and when I say normal, I mean you don't align yourself with the Magi or the sorcerer, right? You're not using those terms necessarily. But if you're a casual observer of this material, you should probably stop watching. You should probably just watch something else, to be honest, because this is for people that really want to take a deep, meaningful dive and really go into their own minds, go into their own spirits, right? Because there's nothing in this world that you'll understand closer or more intimately than yourself. And if you start there and you gain a really fundamentally sound understanding of yourself, then that translates to the rest of the world. So there's nothing casual about this, right? This isn't like a casual passive form of entertainment or education. This is something that if you really want your life to change, if you want things to just be better, right? These are some things that you'll need to go out into your own life and start putting some of these things into practice, right? So I doubt that I have very few normals watching this anyway. They wouldn't be interested in this kind of material. This is mostly for the seeker, right? For the magi. I'm sure there might be some sorcerers watching, but they always are, right? That's not going to change. They always want to control everything. So that's just the nature of the sorcerer. So now let's think about this in a practical sense. Let's think about unconscious programming in your everyday life. Imagine for a moment that you have walked into a crowded place with people everywhere, like at a mall, or maybe you're at Times Square here, like this picture. Okay. There may be street artists around, performers, there's advertisements everywhere, there's maybe some music playing, you can smell food, there's interesting and popular shops around you, there are merchants trying to get your attention, trying to get you to try this or that or to buy this, right? You might be in this place alone, maybe you're with friends. This can be quite an intense experience for the human psyche to process. All of these things happening at once, right? You can feel an intense competition for your attention coming at you from every angle. Advertising, merchants, your friends, strangers, people walking around. And on top of all this, you must manage your own thoughts within this frenzied vortex of human energy and electronic messages, all of which your mind must account for both consciously and unconsciously. So imagine an inner dialogue while you're in a place like this, right? It would be something like this. This place is so crowded with people. What is the screen on the wall trying to tell me? What is this advertisement? I don't want to miss out if they're having a sale. Is that cute girl or guy noticing me? Are they noticing me notice them? That other person over there looks pretty cool. I like their shoes. They're really nice. Maybe I should get a pair of shoes like that. Where did that guy get that ice cream cone? That looks really good. Yada, yada, yada. Right? There's just so much going on. And such an experience will likely cause us to put our guard, will cause us to put up our guard if we are alone, or maybe a little less so with our friends, but still heavily reinforces our unconscious programming and our suggestibility. There's little room for new unconscious programming in this setting. When there's a lot of noise coming in, when you got your phone in front of your face, you got the TV on, you got this person talking, that person talking, you got da-da-da-da-da, all this stuff going on, there's very little room for you to sit down and start actively reprogramming your unconscious. There's just very little room for that, right? And this might be by design, to keep so much noise and so many choices and so many things vying for your attention, right? That one might start to wonder if their entire existence is just based on basically just consuming things, right? Just being a consumer in a sense, right? You start to wonder like, well, when do I get me time? When do I get to have say over my own programming instead of all of these forces trying to influence me this way or that way? There's just millions of different angles of influence, and then there's just me. There's just this one me. When can I get a hold of myself and really master that? Or when do I have a chance to be the master of my own self, right? There's very little room for this in our society. right? So now think about a time when you were in the company of one or more trusted friends where you had far fewer distractions. You were with people that you trust, people that you grew up with, or friends, people you love, right? Unconscious programming is a two-way street. Unlike electronic media and advertisements, which is just a one-way channel from that screen to your mind, right? There's an unconscious programming and reinforcement exchange between two or more individuals. So you're reinforcing unconscious programming in each other. There's an energy exchange. That's essentially what it is, right? You feel this exchange of energy with someone. And that's the dynamic that's happening is there's actually quite realistically, you could say that there's an unconscious programming happening. It's not as if someone can just go up to you and stare you right in the eyes and, do some hocus pocus mumbo jumbo and then just they've got you reprogrammed. And it's not like that. But you can feel, right, that even by someone's nonverbal cues that they have some kind of intention, they have some kind of volition, right? It's their own belief system running, projecting outward, right? So this is also, there's a lot going on with interpersonal exchanges, right? Just when you're with friends. So what happens when the exact same unconscious programming that is running within yourself is also running within your friends, right? It may certainly make your interactions smoother and more pleasant if that same type of unconscious programming is running. But what if the unconscious programming consists of a certain fixed and repeating pattern? What does that mean, right? If you're in some, there's a lot of times where you might feel like you're in a feedback loop of unconscious programming where you're just repeating the same stuff to each other more or less, right? Typically, those with similar unconscious programming choose each other unconsciously, right? Because it represents safe and familiar territory. It's the same reason there's shows we like. There's some sort of safe and familiar unconscious territory that the unconscious territory is safe or familiar, and we like that. This is true for friendships as well as it's true for romantic relationships. It's why partners choose each other. They choose each other primarily on an unconscious level rather than a conscious level. So use your inner faculties of observation, not judgment, just observe. The next time you interact with your friends, are you being challenged to grow and explore yourself with your friends? Why or why not? Right? I'm not saying make a decision, make a conclusion. I'm saying just observe. Because you're going to learn a lot more about yourself, you're going to learn a lot more about your friends, and you're going to gain some extra understanding just from that simple observation. Try to notice the unconscious beliefs that are behind the unconscious programming that's behind what someone says, how someone acts, right? What they observe about the world, what they remark about this or that. Start looking for those things. It's very interesting. So now think about, what about when you're by yourself in nature, right? Or you're just by yourself in a relaxed state without external distractions. You're like, finally, I'm in this state where I don't have people around me. I don't have the TV on. I don't have a phone in my face, right? I'm not at the mall, just in my room alone. There's most certainly an entirely different energy to this experience if you're in nature by yourself or just anywhere by yourself when compared to the previous two scenarios. It's kind of like a recharging for a lot of us, right? At least for the introvert. The introvert is the type of person who recharges alone, and then the extrovert is someone who feels recharged by being with other people, right? So what can the natural world teach you about your own unconscious programming? What does nature have to say about who you really are? Can it be possible to bring these teachings that nature has for you into the first two scenarios we just discussed? Can you bring this state of this natural, I don't know about you, but I think most of us feel recharged in nature. Can you bring this feeling, this energy into Times Square? Can you bring it into the mall? Can you bring it into a group of friends, right? Can it be possible to bring these teachings back to these other places that are more hectic, that have all this stuff going on, right? Is it possible to make these teachings part of your unconscious programming, these teachings from nature? Is it possible for this unconscious programming to then run in the background regardless of where you are, regardless of your surroundings, right? Can you be that calm in the storm, like they say, right? It takes a surrender to the teachings of nature and the repetition of these teachings in order to reprogram our unconscious and bring it into the rest of our lives, right? Some people don't like crowds and they run to nature to get away from the crowd. They're going into solitude just to get away from the crowd, right? But what if you're going into nature for nature's sake, or you're going into your own self for your own self's sake, and then you're bringing it? You're not going into a group or going to a mall because you have to. You're not going because you want to, but you're just bringing a state, your preferred state. Because remember, your inner state of being is your responsibility, right? You can have any state you wish. You can cultivate your unconscious programming in any way you wish. And I don't know about you, but I don't want a bee's nest I don't need a beehive of activity going on inside of me. That's not what I want. I don't think a lot of people want that. And so you have to be conscious of that, and then you have to take steps to rewrite your unconscious programming so that you're not in that state. And so that when you go to places that are more hectic, when you go into situations, right, you don't go into the situation as something you have to do. You don't see it as something you're not dreading the situation. You're more open to going to situations that would cause anxiety in most people, because you realize that the most important place to be, or the most important part of your psyche, is cultivating this natural calm state. And if you can be calm by yourself, calm in nature, well, that's great. But don't you want that state for yourself everywhere else? So you should work on unconsciously programming yourself into that state if that's what you want. And you can have that. There's plenty of people that are able to do that, because at the end of the day, it's not all these messages that are coming at you. And I agree, you should step out of that and get away from that, right? But there are times where you can't avoid that, where you go into that state. But you can spend as much time as you want, and preferably a lot, as much as you can in your day, devote it to cultivating your inner resources of calm, your inner resources of nature, connecting with nature, if you can do that. And then making that your new normal, making that your unconscious, making that the programming that's always running in the background, that's always there. And so any choices, any beliefs, any decisions you make, your tendencies will always go towards this natural calm state, right? That's very possible. And a lot of people can do this. A lot of people have done this. So wouldn't a more relaxed and calming unconscious programming just get overwritten again by the world around us, right? That's kind of the natural question was, well, if I cultivate this natural calm state within myself, if that's what I want within myself and I control that completely, or at least I have the most say over that. Let's just say that. You do have the most say. It's your unconscious after all. It's not someone else's unconscious that they get to program. You get to program that. Right? A world that demands our attention, pulling it in every which way possible, right? You have all of these messages coming at you and fragmenting the quality of your focus and attention, right? Wouldn't that just ruin the calm we feel after coming back from a week of camping in the woods, for example? Or wouldn't that just unwind our daily practice, right? The answer is yes, it certainly can. However, it is entirely possible to reprogram your unconscious perception to such a degree where you can see the world of the seemingly ordinary and mundane. And when I say ordinary and mundane, I don't mean boring, I don't mean calm, I mean ordinary. I mean you're on a busy street, you're at a busy intersection, you're in a mall and it's packed with people, right? It's just the ordinary world, right? But you can reprogram your unconscious perception so that you see these places, these ordinary places, as just another unconscious manifestation of the natural laws of the universe. It's just another unconscious manifestation. And then you can realize, well, this person and all of these people, my friends that you were observing, right? Remember I was talking a little bit about really observing the unconscious motivations of all the people around you. And then you start to turn into almost like this Neo character from the Matrix, right? Where he sees things for what they are and it becomes a lot more unified, a lot more calming. He just sees the code and the code is coming down and he sees the underlying mechanism that's causing it. And the reason he can see this underlying mechanism is because he's gone into it. He's gone in deeply into himself to discover it. And then once he finds out within himself and he finds this calm state within himself that this balanced state, he can then, and only then when he's reprogramming himself, can he then look out into the world of forms, the external world, and see, so imagine yourself doing this, see that everything is essentially arising out of the same nature, that natural calm state that you have, right, is there's just this natural state that's occurring, and you can be tuned into that, and you can just observe without having all of these unconscious messages trying to reprogram you, right? Because you're already in this calm state. And you can just observe things as they are without feeling an obligation. You have to do this or that. You can say, no, my choice is to allow this calm, natural state within myself to come out into my surroundings. And if people are affected by that, that's great. If they don't notice it, that's fine too. My job isn't to change everything around me. My job is just to change my own state, right? You can't change the state around you anyway. You can't change all the messages and all the things and everyone else's beliefs. You know that, right? Everyone knows that. But what you can do is change your own inner state so that you're not reacting, you're not being fragmented, you're not being frazzled by it, right? So that's kind of the point of positive unconscious programming, right? So even if you've tuned your perception to such a degree as this, don't forget to put yourself out into nature as much as possible. So don't forget to return to your state of calm, your state of being centered. And what gets you there, more often than not, what gets most people there is returning to nature in some way. You can't just tell yourself, I'm going to be calm, I'm going to be calm, but you can learn from nature and know, once you learn from nature and realize you are from nature, you are part of that, you are that, you have that within you, then you can access it. And once you can really rely on this unconscious programming and it becomes part of who you are, you automatically go to this place. And when you automatically go there, it becomes a lot more difficult for you to get rattled about anything at all, right? Now, don't delude yourself. Don't deceive yourself into thinking, well, if I just believe this is the case, then it will be the case for me and I will be very calm under any circumstances and I'll never have anxiety. It takes time to learn this. It takes some years on the planet to learn this. But if you're aware of this, if you're just aware of this to begin with, that's a great head start, right? So this is the end of part 17, and I'll see you guys next week for part 18.